Reggie Jackson, how you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing all right. I'm doing all right.
Good.
It's post-election,
That it
so
is.
although there's some sort of lingering activity associated with that,
Yeah.
but it's just nice that that is over
Yes.
because can't take those can't take any more of the constant ads,
Yeah.
and it gets pretty nasty around this time. You know,
Exactly. And I know for me, it's just nice to be able to move on from something else and not have that subject on every channel
right?
constantly.
It's I don't know if you could get a cast of Hollywood writers to script, you know, everything since what, February or something.
Oh man.
It's just been so much stuff and really overload. You know, like we could we could have first contact, with alien species,
Right.
and that'd seem about right.
Right.
You
You're
know,
right.
what
With
else can
everything
you
else
do?
that exactly, yeah. Might as well add. What else can we add on? That's the truth.
Yeah. Speaking of adding on, we used to train together quite a bit,
Oh yeah.
and
Need to get back. I need us to get back to that. get this COVID weight off.
me too, me too. I felt always it's always great conversation.
Yeah.
You were always very consistent. No excuses. No. Hey man, I'm not sure if I'm gonna make it today. There wasn't
Right.
that, and of course I didn't do that either because
Right.
we're trying to hold each other up, and it's just
Ex-
nice to have a partner that you can
Yeah.
depend on like that. So
Yeah. Well, and then also too, for me, it was always nice. Like you said, aside from me learning a ton from you and just from the workout side, I would also learn a lot from the music side. Just having the opportunity to ask questions and get your perspective on things, which to me is invaluable. Because anytime I get a chance to hang around some amazing musicians, I'm always like, okay, what are they doing that I'm not, that I could maybe learn and add to my thing. So that I always I've always appreciated that. And even
I appreciate that.
when we're on gigs together, we do that anyway. I'm always trying to pick your brain.
Yeah, likewise. I was telling a joke on our last. we were I don't know, we were setting up or breaking down or something. I was telling the joke about the drum lesson I got from you,
Oh,
and about after that I quit. No,
uh,
no, that's this is way exaggerated and everything.
right.
But I learned a lot from you too, man, and appreciate and not just about music, not just about training, but we tended to have a lot of conversations about politics.
Yeah.
And one thing that I always found refreshing about our conversations, because we don't agree on everything politically.
Right.
I think there's a lot in common, but
Exactly.
but I think there's other things that we don't agree exactly. But it was never heated.
Right.
It was always level. And you said what your perspective was. I would say what my perspective was, and we even dig in a little bit,
Yeah.
on those topics. And it was always a positive experience.
Yeah. I always, if we could get our current Congress to do what we did, we might actually move forward a little bit in our country. Because yeah, like you said, we may have different opinions on policies, but the thing I always valued in those conversations is knowing that you would hear my perspective and I would hear yours. And when I say hear, I mean really listen and consider the other point of view. And for me, it was always great because it was always like, oh, okay, I never thought about it that way. And oh, okay, well, that it would always shed light on a perspective that I had that, okay, there's another angle that maybe I need to consider in my evaluation of this policy, or whatever the subject was that we were discussing. And yeah, man, I just hope that yes, our government officials and just citizens, in our country can do more of that. Because I know I'll go off on a tangent a little bit, but within my own family, on my wife's side, there has been the my mother-in-law has basically made it that at family gatherings politics can't be discussed now because of COVID. That's not an issue
Right.
anymore anyway. But however, though, but my thing was, if anything, I think the conversations are important because you never really get a chance to hear somebody else's point of view. And if at the very least, if I can't hear what you have to say,
Yeah.
how then can we, move forward working together, I know this is about, I know we're going to talk about music too, but to me, it's the same thing, with music, in a band setting, if I'm not listening to anybody else in the band, how then can we work together?
I've thought about this quite a bit. Just the idea of what a musician's perspective, especially in an oral tradition like jazz,
Mm-hmm.
What can we draw from that as far as the way that we communicate about even tough issues,
Right. Right.
Okay, so when did we meet? So it had to be around.
Oh gosh.
It had to be close to when I moved to Columbus because
Yeah.
I moved to Columbus in '04, and then one of the first gigs that I had was I got called to play with Bobby's trio at.
Was that the King Center, right? Or King Arts Complex?
No. He had a gig, the one of the jam sessions.
Oh, at the were we at the lobby then, or were we at?
I think it was the lobby.
Okay.
I think it was the lobby, and that might have been the first time. And then I booked you guys to play an event at the King Arts Complex. It was
Okay.
Black History Month,
Right.
celebration for the city of Columbus.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for watching my video so far. If you'd like to support, there are several ways to do so below. Also, likes are free. Please comment, share, and subscribe. Now back to the video.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a fun program.
Yeah.
You know, great, all-star cast. And it was a very, very, very fun event and informative event, and it was nice to be supported by the mayor in that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, it's on my YouTube channel if anybody wants to check that out. So.
Oh yeah. That was a good show. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And, you know, of course, immediately I wanted to play with you as much as possible. And it wasn't too long before we ended up playing together at church.
Yeah. That's right.
At New Salem Missionary Baptist Church.
Yeah.
And, of course, that's where I met Lori.
Yeah.
You know, my wife.
Yeah.
Of course, you've known Lori longer than I have.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was at New Salem, I started there in 1992. I think that's when I started playing there.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I guess I just...
Well, you're all right, because
I was only like 10 years old.
Right. What's funny is, I mean, you don't look your age at all.
Well, okay. I'll kick you those dollars a little later.
Right. But it's funny. I've been on a number of gigs where, you know, something about, you know, your age or whatever, and when you tell somebody what your age was, they would be like, no, that's not your age. Or somebody would ask me how old you were, and I would tell them, it's like, he looks like he's about 17.
Right.
But you have that working for you. You know, black don't crack. And
right.
I have a little bit of that working for me. It's strange. My I won't say her age because I'll get in trouble.
Right.
But I'm the younger of the two of us, me and my wife. Mm-hmm. And often, people just assume that she's like way younger than I am.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, man. So she really has that thing working. Of course, she's a dancer, and she's most of it, I think, is staying in shape.
Exactly. You know? Yep. Exactly. And I think for me, you know, it's definitely that, and you know, doing what I love to do, you know, playing music, definitely keeps the stress level low and you know, as low as it can be, and definitely working out. But I think, you know, and we've talked about this, you know, working out to me is also part of being a drummer, being a musician, you know, what it takes, you know, just even lifting drums in and out of the car, and, you know, pushing them, you know, setting up your drums for a gig and then playing the gig, you know. And I never wanted to be the, you know, that cat that, you know, the tune would count the tune off, and then, you know, halfway through it's like slowed down, you know, 30 BPM or the other way.
Right. Or like one of these cats, like you call the tempo 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, go.
Right.
It's like, hold up now. That ain't the tempo.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Or yeah, like I said, or the other way, where, it's here. And then by the time after all solos, you go back to the head and, and you're like, how am I supposed to play the melody?
Right. But yeah, the physical fitness thing. Of course, we've had lots of conversations about this. One of the things I remember us talking about, one conversation was just about, there's this sort of muscle bound, kind of language about lifting weights, and
Oh yeah.
you're going to lose, your fine motor skills. You won't be able to relax. You'll be tense all the time, this kind of thing. And of course, that's never been my experience. And one thing I remember you saying is that by lifting weights, it makes you actually more aware of when you're under load and then when you're actually relaxed, right?
Exactly.
So like if we use like shoulder shrugs as an example, because a lot of people, they carry a lot of tension in their shoulders, right up in here. So if I do the shrugging motion, right, I know that I'm under load. I'm under load, and then when I relax, I can imagine myself hyperextending to really be all the way to where the muscle's totally relaxed.
Yeah.
And actually that particular motion has, that particular exercise has helped me a whole lot because I have stuff hanging around my neck for long hours,
Right.
And I remember as a teenager having a lot of sharp pains between my shoulder blades up in here.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing that got rid of that was I started training, doing shoulder shrugs.
Right.
I put it in my workout, I don't know, 2 or 3 times a week at first with pretty lightweight. Now I just do it 1 time a week.
Yeah.
And that helped a whole lot. And it's easy for me to tell if I am, if I'm doing this. I know if I'm doing this.
Right. Because you've done it so much. Like when you're working out, that is, when you're stressing that muscle is at this point, right? So, and it's same thing with drumming. It's funny. I can notice when I'm doing it. I can notice it watching another drummer play. It's just like, oh man, wow, okay, and I'm sure you do the same thing with your students. If you have to assess, a player and start, okay, here are the things you need to start working on. To me, that that's like number one. Okay, well, first off, let's get you in a position to where you can even play at your optimal ability physically first. So that
the whole posture thing, in playing a wind instrument, your posture can either facilitate, better, lung capacity, air capacity in your lungs, and more control and even flow of air, right? Or it can restrict it and make it so that you can't press as hard or as consistent, and you can't take in as much air.
Yeah.
And then I can imagine playing drums. Proper posture is going to facilitate more independence in your limbs, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And again, this whole idea of being relaxed and not under tension. Like I said, if there's so many subtle things with drums specifically, because you have all four limbs going at the same time, just the slightest thing can throw everything out of whack. If I'm sitting, with my back curved, immediately now, if I have my drums set up to where I can reach them easily if I'm sitting upright, right? Well, as soon as I start slouching, well, now I'm actually lower than where the drums are. So all of a sudden I have to do this, boom,
right.
and then it's the same thing. That's just, your hands. Same thing with when it comes to playing the hi-hat in kick drum or double bass, or if you're doing what I try to attempt to do from time to time, play left foot clave. If I'm sitting upright and then start slouching, same thing. Everything was set up with me positioned here. As soon as I do this, now all of a sudden my hips have now shifted to where before they may be slightly above my knee. Now with this, if I move my hips or move my legs up, now my knee is actually below my hips. So now I'm actually engaging more leg muscles than probably I would actually use if I was sitting upright. It's all those subtle things that with working out, makes a big difference. Just like we were talking about with posture, with what I was talking about with legs, with playing the pedals. As you know, when you're doing squats, just the simple shift of what your hips do makes a world of difference, and so to me, that's what I love about working out. It just heightens my awareness of what my body is doing, so that if that awareness is heightened there, then it can easily translate over to when I'm practicing, to where, oh, wow, okay, I'm tensing up when I'm going from 16th note triplets to 32nd notes. Or actually, I gave a lesson last week, and I was talking to my student, and we were working on some bass drum techniques. And yeah, I was telling him the same thing. Be aware of what your foot position is on the pedal, because it's a pedal, and we're talking about leverage. A half an inch up the footboard or down the footboard makes a big difference. And that could actually be the difference from you increasing your speed by 10 BPM. So, again, that's what I love about working out. It just kind of helps develop that awareness to things that you may not even think about if it weren't for working out and doing some of those exercises.
Let alone just the physical strength and the muscle endurance to be able to do something for a long period of time with control, with consistency, and power, all of that. Yeah, that muscle bound. I prefer muscle enabled.
Yeah. Right.
Because actually, as long as you're, you have to listen to your body. Now, all of this is within reason. Okay, so if I was to, for instance, all I did was train and I didn't practice, then when 3 weeks of just training and no practice, yeah, I probably feel pretty stiff.
Right.
And, so what I always do to counteract that is, I train. I'm careful about training certain body parts, and when I do train those body parts, I make sure that I get right to an instrument, you know, to make sure that I am not, losing any fine, motor control,
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I'm also, and people probably see me doing this all the time, but I'm always stretching,
Yeah.
because I
Yep.
don't want anything to sort of, I don't want to lose any sort of mobility.
Right.
But more fast twitch muscle fiber actually increases your potential for speed.
Yeah.
And that's how the body's designed. That's actually
Yeah.
how that actually works.
Right.
So that alone is not going to make you muscle bound,
Right.
as long as you make sure that you do those other things.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I always, I think that's a very important point, being very aware of your body, and, I always think about, like sprinters. If you look at sprinters, well, if having a lot of muscle is supposedly going to slow you
Right.
down, if you
Right.
look at sprinters, they have massive thighs,
Oh yeah.
and
Oh
so
yeah.
it's kind of like, okay, well then, and these are the people that run the fastest in the world.
That's
So
right.
that doesn't make, obviously that doesn't make sense. Just from
Right.
a not even
Right.
approaching it, uh, you know, with science, just an eye test, you know.
Right. Right.
And then for me, uh, you know, uh, I've seen guys like like yourself. I mean, you can play incredibly fast, and and I've seen you lift a lot of weight, and that that has never, you've never not been able to play a tempo ever, as long as I've known you, ever. And then it's the same with I always look at like Billy Cobham, who's like one of
Or
many.
Virgil Donati.
Virgil Donati.
That cast
Oh
calves are ridiculous.
yeah, and then there's also uh, he's Austrian, Thomas Lang.
Oh yeah. Right. Right.
I mean, he's
Yeah.
another just phenom. I
Yeah.
mean, there's and then there's, you see guys with, you'll see guys with all kinds of body types, but to our point, if you're trying to build muscle, that's not going to hinder
Right. Right.
your
Right.
speed or anything.
Yeah.
So, but everybody work out.
That's right. That's right. Get it in. All right. So Reggie, tell us about yourself. Tell us, where you're from and where you grew up. Maybe some of the features that were enabling that were around your house. Stuff like what kind of music was going on. Maybe other family members that were musicians or any of that kind of stuff, and maybe like some early mentors.
Okay. Yeah, and feel free to interject, because I can easily talk.
That's fine. That's what we're here to do. That's all right. That's what we're here for. That's what we're here for.
So yeah, long story. Well, I won't say a long story short. This might be a long story that's long. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. Grew up here. Most of my family is here, and I grew up playing in church. My grandmother was a minister. She not only did she preach, but she was also a minister of music at a bunch of different churches. And then she had a gospel group when we were kids, me and my cousins, because this is on my mom's side of the family. Oh gosh, I have three aunts, three uncles, and everybody sings and or plays an instrument. And it's funny, out of my cousins, there are three of us that are doing music for a living. Two of them are actually on staff at Joel Osteen's church. They're like part of the praise team there. I don't think they show the music when they do TV, but if you were to ever go there, you definitely hear them. And then they also are, they've been known, they're called Anointed. They've been around for forever. They used to live in Nashville. But anyway, that was, how I grew up in church. And the other cool thing was my family was super diverse in terms of the music. My grandmother would play a lot of gospel music. And then I'd spend a lot of time with my mom, who would also play a lot of classical music. And then there was a gentleman that she was married to when I was younger, who would also play a lot of classic rock. So, it was nothing for me on a Saturday to hear, Beethoven or Mozart. And then the next hour it's, Led Zeppelin and the Doobie Brothers. And then I'd also go and hang with my aunt and uncles. One of my uncles, who's now a retired police officer, he was really into Al Jarreau. And then, of course, all of, the funk bands from the Gap Band and the Ohio Players and P-Funk and George Clinton, all of that. And then my aunt, she was always playing like Stevie Wonder and Aretha Franklin. And, oh gosh. It was kind of this constant mixture of music. And then for me, I didn't really get hip to jazz until high school. I had an incredible band teacher my freshman year in high school by the name of Dan King. I'll probably never forget him. I think I went to the music room and I started playing in the jazz band. And of course, I didn't read music because I grew up playing in church, grew up playing by ear. So he started working with me on just, reading music. And he was like, "Hey, have you ever heard jazz?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And so he made a tape for me and said, "Hey, listen to this." And I took it home and absolutely just fell in love. And what really blew me away was it was a tape, and it was actually a recording that he made from just recording a local jazz station that we used to have here in Columbus, WBBY. And that was incredible. And, once I, got hip to that, it was, whenever I had a free moment, I was listening to that station because, they would play 1 minute, they would play Miles Davis. Then the next minute might be, or the next song, I should say, would be the Yellow Jackets. And then it would be the Count Basie Band. And then the next song would be Pat Metheny. And then the next song would be Coltrane. And I mean, it was just, a constant barrage of just different sounds and feels. I mean, it was jazz. That's what made me fall in love with it because it reminded me of when I was a kid, where I would hear all these different styles of music. But the cool thing was, it was, here's one genre where, not only can I hear what I grew up hearing, I could also hear things that I'd never heard before. With whether it be, listening to some early Dizzy with the Latin influence, or, hearing Pat Metheny with the Brazilian influence, at least at that time, or, Chick Corea. And it's just like, okay, what is, what is this, And so, fell in love with that, and then really started to play the music, as studying it and trying to figure it out. And so I think it was my my junior year in high school. I was playing football, and so this was probably the absolutely wrong thing to do, but I would do this thing where I would skip lunch, and I would go to the band room and practice, and then grab something, right before practice. But I would go to the band room and practice during my lunch period, and there was a sub at that point for our music teacher at that time. By that time, Dan King had left. He went to another high school. And so the sub was a great saxophone player from Columbus, Gene Walker. And so I was in there, practicing, and he was like, "Hey, you mind if I play with you?" And I was like, "By all means." And so we did, drums and sax for, 45 minutes or however long, 40 minutes, however long the lunch period was. And then he invited me to a jam session that he did in Columbus called Jazz and Eggs. It was from 10 to 2. And I started going out there. And then that's when, really things just took off. Started playing with some of the guys here who I, at the time just thought they were local guys. And then, of course, later figured out, okay, no, these guys have played with everybody, and, just having to live in Columbus, Ohio. And then also too, that was the time where I also started learning about other jam sessions that were going on in the city. And Columbus, the one great thing, and I know, the great thing about this city is you can really kind of, whatever your thing is, there's an opportunity for you to do it and work, and work it out. And so for me, it was great because there was Gene's jam session on Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Then there was Bobby Floyd's jam session. So Gene's jam session was straight bebop, jazz jam. Bobby's jam session was from 4 to 8. And that was another, it was jazz, but then they would also do some funk stuff as well. And then later I found out there was two other jazz jam sessions on Tuesday. And that was Aaron Scott, a drummer here in town, had a trio at a restaurant. That jam session would go from 8 to 11. And then there was another jam session, and that was straight ahead jazz, kind of more of a New York vibe. But the cool thing about that jam session, because it was in a restaurant and you had to play quiet, for me, that was where I really kind of learned how to swing with intensity, but at a very low volume. Because if you play too loud, they could potentially lose the gig. So you wouldn't be asked to sit in again, if you couldn't keep the volume down. And then that was on Tuesday, and then from 8 to 11. And then right after, or not right after, well, I would do that jam session and then go to another jam session that I found out about. That was a jazz fusion jam session from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. That Jim Maneri would do on the North Campus of Ohio State. And that was awesome because there was another great drummer, Matt. Oh man, Matt. Oh, I can't believe Matt Wagner. Excuse me, Chris. Great drummer. Actually, Matt. And once again, you know what I was saying about, you know, you hear about guys that are, you think they're just local, but you know they're really like national, international guys that just happen to live here. Well, like Matt was like the number 2. He was really big into drum and bugle corps. So he was like one of the, I think he was like the second, he was rated the second best snare drummer in the world in like 1978 or 1980 or something, one of those years. And so dude just had some incredible hands. But it was awesome because, yeah, you know, I could go to this jazz jam where I, you know, I had to play really quiet and then immediately go and play, you know, this fusion thing where, you know, it was like they were doing, you know, stuff from Herbie Hancock, you know, the Headhunter stuff, or they were doing, you know, some Metheny stuff, or they were do Don Grolnick stuff, or Steps Ahead. I mean, it was just all this like just really great music. So for me, that was just great learning ground for me to just play all these different styles and learn and listen to a ton of really great musicians here in town. And then I started at Ohio State, and I think it was actually, there was a local guy that I started not touring, but gigging with in high school between my junior year and senior year in high school by the name of Arnett Howard. That was great because that was my first like for real professional gig. And I made you know, for a high school kid, I was making a lot of money. I mean, actually was able to buy a car that summer from that gig. And then started at Ohio State. And then I started touring and recording and playing gigs with Kim Pencil, who at that time was like, I think was he signed to G? He might have been, I think he was signed to GRP, and he had like maybe 4 or 5 top 10 smooth jazz hits. I think at that time it may not even been like smooth jazz. Like I can't even remember how they were labeled that, but he had like 4 or 5 top 10 jazz hits. And so that was great because even though I was, you know, going to school and, you know, practicing, taking classes, on the weekends I would fly out and we would do these shows where, you know, I was opening up and having to, you know, play before Poogie Bell or Lil John Roberts, or, I mean, oh gosh, there was a slew of great drummers. And so that was another learning experience, just, you know, having to hear those guys. And then by that point, you know, it was, okay, you know, really got to get your game up. And then also too, I can't forget, my high school had a internship program. And so by the time I was 15, I started working at Columbus Percussion, which is a local drum shop. Great store. Actually, Jim Rupp, who's the owner, is on staff at Ohio State, who, you know, your students are incredibly privileged to have him. And man, Jim was great because through the shop, he was bringing in Dave Weckl, Dennis Chambers, John J.R. Robinson, Marco Miniman. There's a Tony Royster. I met Tony when he was like 12. And he's playing, as great then as he does now. That all of these experiences just kind of, like I said, that's why I didn't say a long story short. But all those experiences kind of is what made me, I guess, who I am. So,
all of the artists that I've had on the program, I've asked them a similar question, and I definitely appreciate, and I think that the listeners will appreciate that you actually used people's names, and that you called people out that were very important to your development. I think it's important for us to acknowledge those that came before us, those that helped us to get, where we're trying to go to. And I think it helps young people, see how important that is. The kind of humility that I think is necessary to really become great.
Yeah, and again, there's tons more. For anybody that I've forgotten, please forgive me. Now I will say there's another drummer that I just have to talk about real briefly. His name is Billy Brown. He's no longer with us, but Billy was one of the drummers that I used to see at Gene's jam session. I can't stress how important it is for young players to get out and go hear the guys that are doing what it is you want to do. And go out, but go out not with the expectation that, they're going to, I can play a little bit, they're going to ask me to play. Don't even go with that attitude. Just go to just listen and hang. I mean, some of the most valuable things I think I've ever learned from guys like Billy and Gene and Bobby, guys here in town, but also guys like Dennis and for people who don't know, Dennis Chambers and Dave Weckl and Kenny Aronoff. Was just me hanging with those guys, whether it be, after a show or after a clinic, or they're talking to someone else, and someone else asked them a question, I'm just around. And just to hear what they have to say, that is so crucial. But you can't do that if your world ends with, you in your practice room, or you in your band, or, you on campus, you're really going to limit yourself, because, music is it's a communal, it's a democratic process. And so if you get locked into, it's my bubble and nothing else exists, not saying that you can't learn it. You're just going to be, you're going to be playing catch up behind the guys that, already figured it out.
Miles didn't like the term jazz. Of course, I got a big jazz shirt on right now. He didn't like the term jazz, and I actually don't I don't like it much either, because it's not particularly a descriptive term, right?
Yeah.
Because there's so much. I mean,
Right.
there's so much. I mean, there's so much. You
Yeah.
know, and,
Yep.
and somebody that doesn't necessarily know or hasn't really studied jazz, they might consider Tony Braxton to be jazz, or
Right.
you know, Kenny G, anywhere from that to fusion and hard bop and bebop and
Yeah.
Afro-Cuban and
Right.
I mean there's so much there's so
Yep.
much there
Yeah.
that the term is kind of but what Miles said is, he says, don't call it jazz, he said call it social music.
Mm.
It's social music.
Yeah.
And obviously social is not social if even the band members aren't part of a community, right?
Right. Yeah.
If they're
Yeah.
not involved in this social music, this whole thing, it's not just about what you can play over 251
Right.
or
Right.
or properly dissecting a Tony Williams ride pattern or something.
Right.
It's not just that stuff's important too,
Yeah.
but it's the experience of being around other folks, and
Yeah.
something that I did quite a bit when I was at my alma mater, Western Michigan University, is we would get together, we'd get a pizza, and we just listen to music.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or we just get together and we would just play,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that was what it was. If you wanted to see live music, you had to actually go and see
Right.
live music. You had to actually go somewhere. You didn't have YouTube to be able to watch all these live concerts,
Right.
full-length live concerts. Now, that's a great resource,
Right.
but that should not be the replacement for actually going to concerts. We have a bunch of people in common, a lot of the people that you mentioned. One person we also have in common is Dorico Watson.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
Yeah. And
for your listeners, anybody who doesn't know who this guy is, he's an insane drummer from Michigan, and go check him out. The guy just is freaking phenomenal, and I love that cat, man. He's a good dude.
so Dorico and I played in a band. It's Phil Marsh's band. I interviewed Phil Marsh on the show, and I actually interviewed a bunch of the folks that we talked about. Also Bobby Floyd, of course.
Yeah.
Long list of folks. Ted McDaniel, Dr. Ted
Yeah.
McDaniel. I interviewed him.
Oh,
But-
yeah, and then sorry, that just made me think. I'm really tripping. Another person I need to talk about is Kevin Turner, who
Kevin
is
Turner,
also
yep.
on staff, and I think I started playing in Kevin's band when I was like 18, and yeah, he was doing a huge mixture of he was playing some Matheny tunes and some Earl Klugh stuff, and I mean it was. Kevin's a huge another part of my development, but anyway, I just throw that out.
Yeah, and Kevin is really quite a delight.
Yeah.
He's such a good dude. I mean,
Yeah.
One of the first people that I think to call when I'm trying to think through something, some political issue I'm dealing with at work or something.
Yeah.
But Dorico. We played in a band, Phil Marsh's band called the Hip Pocket in Grand Rapids,
Hmm.
and that band is a terrific, terrific band. It's a horn band, 10-piece horn band.
Wow.
So we played in that band together, and then he also played in my quartet. And this was, just prior to when he moved to Nashville.
Okay.
And of course, we were all sad that he moved. We were happy for him, but also sad because he left
Right.
a tremendous hole.
Yeah.
Such a terrific drummer. But Victor asked me to come and play with him at the Newport here in
Oh yeah.
yeah, he brought
Columbus.
his band. Right, his band was here, and of course Rico was playing, and then I turned around and Reggie comes walking in, and then Rico says, man, he said, this is the guy. Dorico tells me, this is the guy you should be playing with in Columbus,
Oh.
man. This is the guy right here. This is the guy. I was like, yeah, I know this guy a little bit.
Oh, man, that dude is such an amazing player. And it's so funny because I think it might have been either at that gig or, like I said, I'm always trying to pick people's brains. I remember asking him about, how he practices. And, it's so funny because there are things in my mind, things that I've gotten from very specific things that I've gotten from, Dennis, Dave, Dorico, Kenny Aronoff. And it was so funny, Dorico, when I think about it now, and probably when I say this, you're probably going to be like, well, yeah, duh. But it was so funny. It didn't hit me that way. But I was just like asking him, like, man, how are you, how many hours do you practice? And, what are you practicing? I think he said something, I'm not practicing as many hours as I used to, but, I used to do 8 hours. I'm like, man, how did you do 8 hours, man? Because I'm not always able to have 8 hours, in a row behind the kit. He was like, oh man, you don't have to do all 8 in one setting. And then it was like literally like fireworks, light bulbs. Like I was just like, oh my gosh, wow. Why didn't I think about that, before? And so, but I think it might've been at that show. I asked him that. But anyway, that just made me think about, what we were talking about with, just going out, checking stuff out on YouTube is great, but, going to a show that's when you can actually possibly meet these people, and like talk to people and hear, these, again, they may not seem like a gem to somebody else, but for you at the time, something as simple as that could be the spark to, elevate your practice or your music thing to that next level.
Yeah, and I think having the sort of openness, that's one thing, something that I try to emulate about you. One of your qualities I try to emulate is just the openness. You're first of all, the willingness to basically talk about anything and to be open and generous, all of that. But then just, kind of having that sort of sense of wonder, not the whole kind of closed down thing where, people try to act like nothing surprises them or they've already heard everything,
Oh, yeah.
or like you're some kind of lesser musician if you act like something actually affected you on an emotional level,
Right.
somebody's playing or something. It's like who wants to have to carry around all of that baggage? It's like
Right.
it's like,
Right.
man.
Well, to me, that all just goes to, I well, Pastor Troy at New Salem. Yeah, he's such a great guy, and not to go too. I'm not going to go too far on a tangent, but I will say, one of the things that I love about spirituality, for me, being a Christian, is Christianity, but for anybody that is whatever your faith is, the great thing is within your walk of spirituality, to me, that's very parallel to music. And I remember Pastor Troy said one time, if you're not growing, then you're dying. Oh. And which one do you want to do? And so that has always, for me, it's like, okay, I certainly don't want to die. So, yeah, let me keep growing. Like,
Yeah.
That goes with workouts, growing
Yep.
muscle, like,
That's right.
If I stay closed to if I think I know it all, can I still reach my goals? Possibly. Mm-hmm. But we all have a limited amount of time on this earth. So
that's right. It's limited. It's limited, and it's not known to us.
Exactly. So if that's the case, why then would I not be open to figure out, a faster way to something, or to even just, consider maybe I'm wrong? Because if I'm wrong, then I'm certainly not going to reach the goal that I think I'm trying to reach for. You know what I'm saying?
I actually like to know. It's actually, I don't know, this. Maybe this is a little bit of a counterintuitive and a strange angle on this. But I actually like to learn about things that I'm wrong about. And
Yeah.
the reason that is because, especially if it's to the extent that it is something fundamental, that's even more exciting to me.
Yeah.
Because the potential of learning the right thing and how much more positively that's going to impact everything else, right?
Yeah.
That's for me, that's like an exciting thing.
Yeah.
And my wife, she may not seem to think that I'm so excited about.
My wife can say the same thing about me, right?
But actually, it's a good. It's a good thing to learn the things that you're not doing right. I mean, if you can just tweak something a little bit and get like that much more out of it.
Right.
I'm 46, and I have never been stronger than I am. I've never been in better shape than I am now, and I've never loved music more or been more passionate about music or about any of the stuff that I do than I am now. And I hope that it stays that way until I die. I don't want to tread water. I mean, who wants to do that? Who wants to just, I just want to, all I need to do is just keep my head just a little bit above water, just for a little bit longer. And it's like,
Right.
I'm trying to go, man. I'm trying to make moves, man.
Right.
I'm trying to go places.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree. You know, and to me that's, I always look at it, you know, I love to stay open and learn where I'm wrong, if I'm wrong at all. That's why I love to stay open, because one of two things is going to happen. Either I'm going to learn that what I was doing is wrong, and then I can take that and analyze, okay, well, why was I wrong? You know, where did I make the wrong turn? Or I'm going to learn that, oh, no, what you were thinking is actually on track. And what this person just said just reinforces the way you're thinking. So now you can just put, you know, foot on the pedal and gas it and just go.
You know, I'm thinking about this. Actually, the whole open-minded, closed-minded, that's actually it's not the best. It's not the best approach to describing what it is that we're getting at. It's more like active versus passive, right? So like an active mind is something that at least processes the information. Now,
Right.
it may be able to determine that something can be improved by assimilating this information, right? Or it may determine that, you know what, this is reinforcing things that I understood or I knew to be true, and
Right.
and it just sort of increases my confidence in whatever that particular thing is. Versus someone that's passive, that doesn't matter what happens, I'm pretty much just going to be the same anyway.
Right.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know that
Right.
that kind of thing.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah.
No, that I love that, because I think see, I'm gonna start taking that and using that with my students. Uh,
Now I'll tell you. Now I'm not the inventor of that. That came from a buddy of mine, T.K. Coleman, and him and I are longtime friends. We went to undergrad together. We have a show together called Thunder and TK. It's a live stream program. We've been doing it every other Tuesday. And then, but he was a philosophy major at Western.
okay. Yeah.
And he actually got it from one of his teachers, Tim McGrew,
Okay.
who I don't know if he's still the philosophy professor there. He may be. But there's the great philosophy professor, Quentin Smith, who's known, he's a world-renowned, he's an atheist philosopher, but he's had a debate with William Lane Craig, which is one of these iconic debates. Is transcripts actually on William Lane Craig's website of that debate. Very, it's a very good debate. If you're into that kind of thing, it's a very good debate. One of the ways that TK and I connected initially was on Christian apologetics. And, we did a Ravi Zacharias special recently also. Ravi Zacharias is a Christian apologist, very influential itinerant minister, and he recently passed away. A heavy dude. But anyhow, but that's where that comes from. That active passive. That's where that whole thing comes from.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like that, because essentially that's another way of, for me, it's you know, for when I'm teaching my students, you know, drummers, you know, I'm very, the whole process is really about trying to have the student, as I like to say, be aware of the time. But what we're talking about is having an active mind about the time.
Yeah.
Because to me, as a drummer, if you're not even aware, like you said, if you're just passive, then the time can go anywhere. And if you're trying to, play drums for a living, it's not going to happen because, people
It's
can't.
interesting. It's interesting because in this context, we're talking about time, and in different ways, we're talking about metronomical or chronometric time, but then we're also talking about sort of being in the moment, right?
Right.
So
Exactly.
and being open and active in the
Exactly.
moment to try to suck up every possible ounce of to try to get it all, suck the life dry
Right.
out of everything around you.
Exactly. Yeah. Because it's funny that idea of of time. Even if we're like you said, if we're talking about it, metronomically, musically, but then just in the moment. Once again, to me, I want my students to be conscious and active and aware of time, every aspect of it. Because, like we said before, you don't know how much time you have on this earth or
Right.
when it's going to end.
Right.
And so it's critical to be present in the time that you're in right now. Because and that flows into even musically. I have to understand that time is ongoing. It's not, there's nothing we can control, the time we're talking in this conversation, time has elapsed,
Right.
and we can't go back, and we can't go, we can't fast forward because, I don't know what you're going to say. You don't know what I'm going to say.
Right.
So those aren't options.
But that's the beauty of it, right? That's what's interesting is I don't know what you're going to say. You don't know what
Right.
I'm going to say, and so.
But if I
often
stay
people got-
focused, oh, sorry, but I was just gonna say, but if I stay present
right,
and listen to what you're saying, then we can have this conversation and we can create this beautiful conversation. Or if we were playing, we could create some beautiful music, but only if I'm present in the time and actually aware of, what am I doing? What am I saying? And what are you saying? Sorry, I just wanted to.
Oh, no, totally. If we don't know what's going to happen, and there should be some kind of wonder and awe about that,
Yeah.
rather than the disposition that says, been there, done that already have written you off, already passed judgment on you're not going to add anything, meaningful, to what's going on. That's got to be a lonely existence because, there is this principle of the vacuum. And the principle of vacuum goes this way. You can't get anything new in there unless something goes out. Right?
Yeah.
And so you have to be willing to listen and be present in the moment. That's your contribution in order to be able to take something in that's going to be enriching,
Yeah.
to you. There's also this idea, there's this sort of unknown factor, like we don't know how long we're going to have. And there's this idea about, having regrets. I remember my dad told me something, and he told me something. So I was contemplating going back to school to finish a doctorate, or to actually even start a doctorate. I hadn't even started it. And, I was going back and forth, and I was like, oh man, there's probably 2 schools that are close enough for me to even consider driving to. Man, both of them are kind of far apart, far away from where I'm working. How am I going to do all this stuff? I mean, there's so much stuff going on. I mean, my son was about to be born, and it's just like a bunch of, it's just like a lot of stuff, right?
Right.
And I'm like, oh goodness. And I talked to my dad, and I said, I'm thinking about this thing. I'm not sure, hey, I already have tenure. I'm in the academy. I don't need a doctorate, and he says, all right. He says, 5 years from now, he said, you could either have the degree or not have the degree. 5 years still went by. Right. Right. That doesn't change. That's going to happen anyway. All right. So that's granted. So you can either have the degree or you don't have the degree. And he said, once more, you won't even remember why it was that you didn't do the degree. You'll just not have it.
Yeah. Wow.
and and I was like, I guess I'm going to school then.
Right.
I thought I was done. I thought I was done with school. But it looks like I better start looking around.
Right.
And when I look back at it, I don't even know how it was possible to do, because there was so much stuff going on, especially when I started the degree.
Yeah.
I was working at Vineyard Columbus, part-time. That was 25 hours a week. I was a tenured professor at Ohio State.
Yeah.
The second year of my degree, I had taken over as director of jazz studies. So full-time, I don't know, I had 15 or 16 students. Yeah. And all of the other stuff that was going on, all the classes, combos and stuff I was directing, all the different stuff that I was doing.
Yeah.
The school was 2 hours away, University of Cincinnati. Yeah. So I was driving 12 hours. I was down there 3 days a week. So I was driving 12 hours, was there all day on Monday. And then I was there just in the morning on Wednesday, in the morning on Friday. They gave me some flexibility as far as moving some things around so that I could teach some things in the evening at Ohio State. Did I mention that I'm married?
Right. That little thing.
Right. And my son was just born, and somehow I still put him to bed almost every night.
Wow.
I don't even know how that's possible. When I try to look at the possible ways for the time to be structured, it just worked. And my point with this is not to suggest that I'm some kind of wizard with the calendar.
Well, I will say that, but I will say that, one of the things that I absolutely admire and try to emulate from you is, I don't know anyone more disciplined and thoughtful about their time than you. Because I think we were even working out during that time, and and I'm like, dude, what are you doing here at the gym? But you would work a schedule to where you got everything done. And, also too, I think you might have been trying to learn. Was that when you started learning guitar?
Yeah, there's some overlap there.
So I mean, that the fact that you're able to complete and do as much as you do, you know, shoot, you make me feel bad. I'm like, man, what are you doing? there's a couple of hours here. You know, Sean's probably building a house and working on, you know, another instrument. You know, here I am, you know, hacking away on something.
Well, I appreciate that, especially coming from someone as hardworking, as dedicated as you've been for as long as you have been. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But my point was, I just had to start putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
I had to decide that I was going to do this thing and then just do it.
Yeah.
Because the time's going to pass anyway. And you can either use the time or you can lose the time. I mean, it doesn't matter. You just feel a tremendous amount of regret.
Right.
When you look back on your life, it's like, man, I should have done this and I should have done that. And do I have regrets? Yeah, I do have regrets. You know, do I wish that I had, you know, maybe done certain things in a different order or done things, certain things differently? Certain mistakes that I've made? Of course I do. But, you know, honestly, part of getting older and, you know, maturing is hopefully to be able to use that, you know, the desire not to feel regret anymore or again.
Right.
I felt that before. I don't want to feel that anymore.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
To try to, you know, make some changes, you know, resituate things.
Yeah.
So I do want to ask you about, so you say you're teaching lessons.
Yeah, a few here and there. Mostly, there are guys that there's one student that I have. Who, I mean, he's an older adult, plays in a cover band. You know, I teach him. We specifically work out, you know, things that he's trying to get together, and you know, just trying to be a better player. Not teaching as much as I used to teach, way more than I am now. But
are you doing any like teaching online?
It's mostly, yeah, we do like Zoom lessons.
Okay.
But as far as like an online school or, you know, through a website or something like that, no. I mean, it's usually, you know, if a guy has a question or, you know, I'm like, hey, yeah, hit me up. You know, we can schedule something. But if somebody
if somebody wanted to reach out to you, would they just get you like on social media and say, hey, you know?
Exactly. You message me on Facebook or Instagram. And yeah, you know, just hit me up and, you know, we can schedule lessons.
I'll put a link to your Facebook in the description to this video, so people can find you.
Yeah.
And what are some other things that you're doing? Of course, you've been playing in the Dr. Thunder Quartet.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Unfortunately, you couldn't make this gig coming
this
up
week.
This week. But
man, I know you got a great player in my spot. Hopefully, I'll be back after y'all work with him.
Yeah, you'll definitely be back, man. You're that's your chair. That's your chair.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, just, you know, in spite of COVID-19, you know, just playing. Luckily, I've done I did some things shortly after my gig with Dr. John. I started playing more with cats in Cleveland and Cincinnati, which has really kind of paid dividends during this period because, you know, with stuff shutting down, it's good to have, you know, having had those relationships develop with other bands and musicians and other cities to where, you know, that's kept me relatively busy. I mean, obviously, nobody's working as much as they were, you know, pre-COVID, but
and you played with Diane Shore too.
Yeah, actually, we had some dates this month. actually. And, those were pushed back till March of 2021. But I don't even know if that's still going to happen. The good news is, it looks like there's a vaccine that's looking good, but, realistically, who knows when we're, back to where we were as far as, live music and touring.
I'm not a pessimist. Often my wife accuses me of such, but I'm not a pessimist. I'm not an optimist. I'm a realist, right?
Right.
I don't know that it's ever going to go back to quite what it was before.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think for larger, and again, this is just my opinion. For bigger artists, very well-known artists, that'll come back. I don't know that it'll come back to the same degree, but that'll come back. But I'm with you in terms of, the smaller scale, local scene, club scene,
hustling gigs, right?
Yeah, I mean, just if you consider, it was funny. I did a little like a podcast with a buddy of mine who's a Nashville drummer, and we were just talking about how the arena shows, that stuff will come back because again, it's big artists, big show, big production. People are going to want to go and do something, but the days of like the small clubs and smaller venues that, when you're a touring musician, I've done this with Diane and Dr. John, where, we would, there'd be some big, maybe theater or amphitheater. But then on that same tour or that same run, there might be a club date tied in,
right.
or the theater or arena shows are the anchor dates of a run, of a weekend run or of a 2-week run. But then in between all of those, it's a bunch of club dates. Are those clubs around? Will they be around? I mean,
yeah. That's what I was about to say. I mean, a lot of these clubs have had to pack it in. You can't, you can't live on love.
Right.
You got to be able to, you got to pay bills.
Exactly.
And speaking of a club that, in particular, a club owner that had meant a lot to Columbus and kind of single-handedly was bankrolling cats. I mean, he was just digging in his own pocket because I know this cat was not making any money.
No.
David Strauss, passing away. That was a really, really a big blow to the jazz community.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's incredible to think about what he did. And I mean, we played there at least once a week during COVID, and it just wasn't just us. There's a bunch of other musicians that played there on a regular basis, and he literally opened up a jazz club because there was another club that everybody was playing at that folded, and he's like, okay, this can't die. And boom, sunk a ton of money of his own, that's going to be a big blow. And then, to your point, is anything going to take its place? We would ask that pre-COVID, we would ask, okay, so, is there going to be another spot that's going to pop up? And, our chances would probably be good that something would. Now you're just hoping the spots that are already open can even stay open. Like Natalie's, they've got, they opened a second location, you know, 4 months before COVID hit, and hopefully, I mean, they seem to be doing okay. But, that's right now, uh, you know,
Yeah.
where are they going to be, in January when the holidays are over? People have, spent money they didn't have on, presents and, are they going to be willing to go out? And then, as musicians, then that goes to, so what do we do? Part of my COVID time has been, buying gear, setting up my, home recording setup, and done a couple of records so far. But, but then that's the other thing. Who has money
Right.
to
Yeah.
pay, cats to, hey, I need drum tracks for such and such. Okay, cool. What are you going to do with it? I mean, hopefully, I mean, you can throw it up on Bandcamp, or, you can sell it yourself. But once again, do people have the bankroll? And we're talking about musicians. It's not like,
Right.
at least for me, now I know guys in Nashville and LA, that, it's nothing for them to have, Capitol or Sony or somebody hit them up, say, hey, I need a drum track for such and such. But, for, just regular working guys, it's kind of like, man, do what you can do, to do what you can do. Whether it be, websites and just hustling to, negotiate what you're willing to do a track for, do what you do.
All right. Well, like I said, I'm going to put a link to your Facebook, probably to your Instagram also in the description, so that people want to reach out to you, they can do that. Do you have any final words?
I'd probably just say, I would just encourage people, musicians, people who love live music, just, go out, support it. And as far as musicians go, just continue to get better, the best you can. None of us can be like, Dr. Sean Thunder Wallace, but, but if okay, I want to get better at playing jazz, or I want to get better at playing bossa nova, or I want whatever it is. And if you only have 15 minutes or 20 minutes a day, because, your regular gig is, you're driving a truck, or, teaching, or whatever it is. If you can map out that amount of time, man, just go ahead, do it, and enjoy the process, because like we've been talking about, time is time, and, you can't get it back. So just enjoy every moment of it.
And with that final word, I'm going to say good night. It's great having you on the show, man. I mean, I feel like we only barely scratched the surface, so I'm going to have you back sometime.
Oh, I'd be happy to. I feel the same. I mean, we would work out for 2 hours, and we cover a slew of topics. But yeah, I'd be happy to. Anytime you need me, man, I'll be there.
Well, God bless you.
Hey, bless you.
All right, now
All right,
have a
my
good
friend.
one.
You too.